Hello everyone, welcome back to the TG Omega channel for day 1175 of our daily content grind. Now if you're watching this in a playlist, the next video is going to have a lower number on the daily count than this video because I did an oopsie. So in trying to keep up the daily content and keeping track of everything that I've been doing, I realized, it was pointed out to me, that I reviewed issue 13 and 14 of the Skybound comics without reviewing 11 and 12. Funny things happen when you're trying to do content literally every day. So we're going to amend that today and fill in the gap. So thank you for time traveling a little bit with me for my regulars, but if you're watching on the playlist, hey, you wouldn't have noticed unless I put this little thing in. Okay, so let's see, where are we? So this is the culmination of the Shockwave arc. We've been getting these 6-issue arcs for these books, which is kind of nice, you know, you kind of know where your endpoint is every time. They can break out of that at any point, but for now, it gives it this nice little, like, tight story that, you know, you can easily sit someone down in front of and go, here, this is a neat book you need to read, you know? So it's not a big investment to read just yet, which I think is a really big key. So, where did we leave off? Okay, so Shockwave killed off Ratchet, and then in the aftermath of the battle with Shockwave, Ratchet dies, Elita 1 and Ultra Magnus end up on Earth, and Cliffjumper and Jazz have been captured. So, things always look bad for the Autobots in these books. I'm not going to lie. They always feel like they're on the back foot a little bit. The heroes are always scrapping for everything they get to do. Which, you know what? When you're trying to raise stakes for the good guys, that's not the worst of situations. You know, it actually plays pretty well, you know, to actually have them threatened. You know, it puts a lot more emphasis on the story. So, we need a plan. We need to get into Shockwave's base, and we need to rescue our allies. I love the means of doing this, too. They're getting Skywarp to help. So, in a previous book, you'll recall, Skywarp was saved from a missile shot. And because of that, he's actually been way more cooperative. He's still hardwired into Teletran 1, and there is no separating the two at the moment. But he's clearly not happy with the Decepticons for what they did to him. You know, whereas previously he was more resistant to the Autobots, he has been far more willing to help them ever since they saved him from the rocket blast. You know, it's only like a bit of his consciousness that's in there, but it is there. And right now, it's completely on board with the idea of teleporting the Autobots in, placing a ton of detonation charges in Shockwave's base, and blowing the whole thing up. Gotta admit, it's interesting. If we ever get to a point where Shockwave, or where Skywarp can actually be, like, harvested out of Teletran 1 without dying, we might get a very interesting and different depiction of Skywarp. I'm not sure he's going to go back to, like, just being a bruiser for the Seekers. It feels more like he's going to want vengeance. It feels far more like he is going to be very angry at the Decepticons. And if this shows anything, maybe even appreciative to the Autobots. It's actually a curious decision. The way this book is lining up, we might actually have 2 Seekers that are more Autobot aligned than Decepticon, which would be kind of fascinating. It is a little bit shades of IDW 1.0, where Thundercracker became a playwright on Earth, and I keep wanting to say Shockwave. Skywarp ended up with G.I. Joe. But it's going on a different pattern here, so I'm curious as to where it's going to go. But that is the plan. Elita One is going to carry a bunch of charges and lay them all across the base while everyone else is tackling Shockwave head on to recover Jazz and Cliffjumper. We do get a lot of Elita One in these books, and it really shows her character. She is war-torn, she's angry. More than anything, she's angry. Angry at Decepticons, angry at Optimus for what she views as abandoning the planet after he started a war on it. We don't know how the war shook out. We still don't know the true, like, what happened on Cybertron. And there's a lot of dialogue, even in these two books, that really makes me curious about what really was going on before they came to Earth. Because while this book started off kind of like stock standard, you know, the Ark crashes on Earth, etc., everything since then has been a really interesting departure. So it makes me wonder what led to them being on the Ark and crashing on Earth, because it feels like it's going to be very different from what we got before. I'm actually curious, because they're changing so much and because what they're implying. I'm really curious as to what was happening previously to this story, which is not something that's easy to do in Transformers. I'm excited about that. But yeah, Elita is angry, bitter, and it's going to come across a lot as these books go on. At one point, she's trying to chastise RC for leaving the cause. RC punches her out, and deservedly so. You know, because she's not coming across as a great person at the moment. Give it a minute. It'll get worse. So the plan goes, you know, as according to plan as you could hope. They teleport in, they lay the charges, and the fight does break out while they're trying to get Jazz and Cliffjumper away. And it is a pretty epic fight. Once again, the Autobots feel like they're kind of on the back foot, especially because Devastator is involved in this fight again. At one point, Devastator actually kicks Cliffjumper through the space bridge that's opened up and knocks him into the Combaticons that are waiting on the other side, which is kind of a funny visual, not going to lie. But more importantly, it places Cliffjumper on Cybertron. Now, he was a hostage in this situation. Shockwave was literally holding him to hand point. But we do have this scene. So if you've been keeping up, Carly is turning into Miko, where she really just wants to keep jumping in. Because of her own anger toward the Decepticons, she really wants to get in there and start killing robots. She is also very angry. However, and she's been even more angry since Cliffjumper spared Starscream, because Cliff did not want to see anyone else die, even a villain. He's tired of seeing death. Which, when you've been in a war for centuries or millions of years, I'm not even sure the time scale in this universe yet. Yeah, I can understand that. Carly at the time could not, but she's been angry at Cliffjumper, but now this is getting overweight. Because he's in danger, all that's kind of going like water under the bridge. She teleports in with the van, crashes into Soundwave's arm to free Cliffjumper, and somehow makes it out without getting squashed, blown up, etc. So good on her. She's actually kind of evading being squished, which has happened to a lot of humans in this book so far. We'll get back to her in a bit. So I want to point out that through all of this, Shockwave is also kind of showing some colors. Now that there's actually pressure on him from the Autobots and his whole plan to siphon energy from Earth and transfer it to Cybertron, which is still coming through the portal in the sky, by the way. Now that he's actually under some pressure, he's starting to show a little bit more of who he really is, whereas he came in very much like, you know, Soundwave, my brother, my Decepticon brethren, you know, like very much like, more like the uniter that Starscream failed to be. But really, the reality here is the cold logic of Shockwave does still exist. Soundwave in these books is still really just wanting to repair Ravage. He's still carrying around his body, just kind of like looking for someone, anyone, to help him get the parts to fix his friend. And Shockwave does not care. He is angry that Soundwave is still worrying about this when they're about to have Autobots knocking on the door. The same goes for the Combaticons, who are more concerned with their the two of their team that are the members of their team that they're separated from, and Shockwave is still like, that's not important right now. So ultimately, not really caring what his subordinates actually want or what's important to them. Again, it's all about the cause, which is kind of funny because, Elita 1 was chastising RC because she was not, because she left the cause. There's a very weird parallel between Elita 1 and Shockwave throughout these two books. Well, give me a minute. It's going to get worse. Oh, speaking of things getting worse, so Optimus and Elita 1 team up to actually take on Devastator in these books. Remember, after Optimus put on the Megatron arm and got a boost from the Matrix, he managed to beat Devastator one-on-one. Kind of nuts. But here, it takes him and Elita to drop Devastator right on top of the energy siphon, which completely does in Shockwave's plan. And while it's a good moment to trick the Giant into like ruining Shockwave's day, can we have Devastator actually, I don't know, accomplish something? His last two fights, he has been defeated pretty easily, and I'm starting to lose any kind of menace the Constructicons should have. And I'm kind of getting nervous that the Combaticons, who are inevitably going to be together, and we're inevitably going to get Bruticus, I'm kind of worried they're going to be treated the same way. It's like this huge threat to end off an issue where you go, oh no, now what are they going to do? And they're just going to trick their way into winning. Which, don't get me wrong, scrappy, clever heroes and all that. But I don't want the Gestalts, the combiners, to be treated as just like this giant cannon fodder that can be blundered into losing. I want them to be threats. I want them to actually get kills. I want them to actually show their menace, in which I'm not getting enough of that. So Devastator losing twice, not the best look for him. No. The real fight here is between Optimus and Shockwave. So when Shockwave tries to retreat, through the portal back to Cybertron, Optimus follows, and he's not happy. He is not happy. The first thing he does is blast Shockwave's gun arm off, and then proceeds to beat him, and beat him, and beat him. Optimus is kind of ruthless during this, and at some point, there's this moment where Prime kind of gets swept up in the moment. He's having those visions again of the baby in his hands, which we presume is the memories from Sparky. Our spark plug for this universe. It's implied that the memories from him were transferred via the Matrix to Optimus, which is why he's seeing a baby. It's Spike. He's seeing a baby Spike in his hands. But this time it was twisted. It was dark. It was very grim this time. And Prime's eyes go purple as he's crushing his hands through Shockwave's head. It's brutal. It's really brutal, especially coming from Optimus Prime. They've kind of been implying since he took the Megatron arm that there is this kind of like dark side to this version of Optimus Prime. It's mostly the comic book covers that have been showing it. This is the first real time we've seen it in the books. And what makes it more terrifying is the fact that Elita 1 sees this happen and goes, "Welcome back to the war." This scene is familiar to her. And now, and Optimus is going on, I'm not that, I don't know what came over me, I'm not that person anymore. And this all takes me back to all that language the Decepticons have been using to describe the Autobots, which is to call them evil, or to, describe them as the tyrants, not the Decepticons. And like, now I really want to know what was going on in this war before these books started. Because it's looking like it's not black and white. We're not dealing with just standard Autobots and Decepticons. I have people in the comment section that kind of complain when they do like take different twists on characters. Like, well, no, Thundercracker shouldn't feel like remorse for the humans. He's a bad guy. Let characters tell their stories. And that's what we're getting here. Like, there is a different story behind all of this than we've ever had with Transformers, and I am dying to see it. My anticipation is immense right now. But here's where everything goes south. Elita wants to keep the Energon. So Shockwave is still gained enough Energon to repower all the Decepticons on his side on Cybertron and then some, through all of his siphoning of Earth, grinding whales up, that kind of thing. And Elita 1 doesn't want the Energon to go to waste. In fact, she makes it sound like she wants to plunder Earth as well. This is kind of terrifying. Elita 1 has been battling for centuries longer than Optimus Prime. Optimus left Cybertron during the war. We don't know why, but just like in G1, Elita 1 was left behind to be the leader while he was gone. The difference is, in G1, it's kind of treated as this like plucky rebellion, whereas here, no, it is the harshest side of the war. She has seen countless friends die, friends tortured, Magnus tortured for literal centuries. She's seen the worst of it. The war got worse when Prime left, and she had to be the leader that whole time, and it's taken a toll on her. She would prefer to bleed the Earth dry when her home is dying of thirst. She sees it as a resource just as much as the Decepticons do, which is, again, the gray area we don't get very often in Transformers that really should be on display more. She might be like opposed to the Decepticons' tyranny or whatever they're going for in these books, but that doesn't mean she views Earth as important. To her, it's a distraction. To her, it's just something they shouldn't be bothering with. Why are you choosing Earth when our planet is suffering? And the bad thing is, you could almost see a point here. I guess when you're a giant metal life form and your planet's dying, what makes what they're doing to Earth different than you or me flushing the roaches or rats out of our homes, who are also just trying to survive. It's a twisted mentality, especially from someone who is Autobot and to this point has been towing the line. Optimus doesn't like this. Optimus is not comfortable using the blood of one planet to rejuvenate the other. And he detonates the whole thing. The portal's still open, by the way. Cybertron was coming through Earth. Coming through to get closer to Earth. And that means that when the portal closes with Optimus on the cut side of it, he and a slice off of the side of Cybertron fall back to Earth. They're great at visuals in these books. They really are. Just seeing a hunk of Cybertron sticking out of the ocean is haunting. And when Prime goes, like, what have I done? Like, you feel that. You feel it a lot. It's an incredibly bad situation. Prime in the G1 cartoons has chosen Earth over Cybertron before because he feels like it's their responsibility to protect the planet because they brought the war there. And, you can agree or disagree with that. This Optimus feels very much the same, but also far more horrific things are happening in these books than they ever did in the original cartoon. So the stakes are extremely high, which is good. Now, I mentioned he's falling from space, and pretty banged up when he's doing it. Just so we get it clear, we're going to jump around here, just a few little small character points to end off the video. He's caught by Beachcomber on his flying surfboard, because he's Silver Surfer apparently. So, Beachcomber and Spike have been getting to know each other. Like, they chain up Astro Train on the beach. They kind of leave him there with a bottle of Energon just to tide him over until Decepticons find him. But for the most part, they've kind of been getting along with their ideology of, they don't want to fight. They don't want to be part of this war. But as Spike points out, and I believe it seems like Cliffjumper agrees, they can't avoid that. Whether they like it or not, they're part of this. And that means that Beachcomber's the one to save Prime at the end of the day. So it's a little side note, and it's good to see Beachcomber has that like love of Earth in him. I feel like him and Optimus are going to get along fairly well in this. And if Optimus really is kind of getting this twisted dark side going, it's probably going to be Beachcomber that keeps him focused on protecting the Earth itself. Other notes here. So there's a debate in issue 11 over should we repair Ultra Magnus completely, or should we use that power to reactivate more Autobots? And Magnus insists on being rebuilt and rejoining the fight. But when he rejoins, the first sight of Shockwave completely shuts him down to the point where he has to transform and run away. That's, again, not a Magnus we've ever seen. But then again, we've never seen a Magnus who went through literal centuries of torture. He's broken, not just physically, spiritually, mentally. He experienced the worst. Remember, he just wanted to be put out of his misery when Elita 1 found him. So now, I kind of get it. You've been through some horrific things. I don't really blame him for completely shutting down at the sight of his tormentor. That's understandable. And it's going to be an interesting development for Ultra Magnus as a character moving forward, because we'll find him eventually. Other characters, RC almost goes off the deep end too, but ironically, Prime is the one to remind her, you've come a long way. Don't lose yourself to this path again. Which is interesting because he falls down to that path when he kills Shockwave. So now I'm kind of thinking okay, now really what were the Autobots up to? Really, what were the Autobots up to? I am desperate to know at this point. It's fascinating. They're really leading up to this idea that the Autobots weren't the best of people. Pre-book. And, they're showing little signs of that here and there. They are still trying to push the whole, Iron Apprentice thing. But it still feels like something just kind of placate Carly to make her feel involved and give them an excuse to leave her out of fights, because she really wants to fight. She really wants to get in there. I'm really curious, after this scene where she actually does kind of prove herself a little bit, if they're going to take that more seriously, if they actually are going to position her in a way where she can actually get into combat or not. We will see. And just to leave it off in a little bit of trivia, we see Shockwave being wielded in gun mode. I want to point out this doesn't happen. This never happens. In G1, he's just a giant laser cannon. So, being wielded like a gun, the way Megatron had to be wielded, is kind of surprising. Now, we do know, well, I guess that's spoilers, so we'll save that. We'll save that. But the point being here is, it's just a fun little bit of trivia to know. The only time we saw Shockwave wielded in someone's hand was Bruticus, a giant. So that made sense. But this, to my knowledge, is the first time we've actually seen him do the Megatron thing. So, interesting note to end off the book, and the books are still so good. So, again, you know, I hope you only watch these reviews to get my thoughts and opinions on them. I hope you're not using this as a replacement to read the books to yourselves. They are genuinely worth your time. So that is issue 11 and 12. Out of order, but hey, we filled the gap. That was what was important. So thank you for sticking with me. Apologies for that weird gap in the coverage, but there you go. So thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.
Analysis complete. Adapting translators to local language.
Are you out there?